Please marry my mama, mister. She's all I have now, whispered the little girl to the silent rancher. The wind carried the smell of beans, wood smoke, and something more fragile. Hope, Jake. Hartwell sat quietly on the long porch of the frontier and a bowl of baked beans in front of him. His worn coat matched the color of the weathered pine planks beneath his boots. He wasn't used to company anymore. Not since the war. Not since his brother's ranch burned down and half his world with it. So when the little girl tugged on his sleeve, he nearly spilled a spoon. "Mister," she said, eyes wide and voice careful. Jake looked down and blinked. She couldn't have been more than 5. Brown hair in a ponytail, a simple tan dress, cheeks smudged with flour and adventure. She was holding on to the edge of his coat, like it was a cliff she might fall from. He cleared his throat. "Yes, sweetheart." She leaned in close, almost conspiratorial. "Please marry my mama." Jake blinked. "You're what now?" She nodded solemnly. "She's real pretty. She makes warm bread. She sings nice. But she's all I have now. And I think you're lonely." Jake didn't know whether to laugh or cry. A woman appeared from the doorway behind them, apron dusted with flour, face flushed from baking. Her expression shifted the moment she saw her daughter tugging at a stranger. "Clara May," she said gently, voice firm. "What did I say about bothering guests?" The girl turned to her mother. "Buddy looks like a papa. A real one." Clara blushed deeply. "I'm so sorry, sir." Jake stood slowly and tipped his hat. "No trouble, ma'am. She just surprised me is all." Clara gave a nervous smile. "She's been asking every kind man that passes through to marry me. Started last month. Won't take no for an answer." The little girl frowned. "Mama always says we need someone strong around." "He's strong. And sad." Jake looked at her again. Sharp little eyes. Too observant for her age. He saw it now. The way her dress was patched in places. The way Clara's hands were red from scrubbing. The worn edges of hope around their expressions. He bent to her level. "What's your name, sweetheart?" "Annie," she said proudly. "Well, Miss Annie," he said with a gentle smile, "I think your mama's doing just fine. But thank you kindly for the offer." Annie folded her arms. "You didn't say no." Jake gave her a wink and sat back down. He stayed the night. Then another. He'd meant only to pass through town after delivering a few old debts to be collected. But the bread at Clara's table was the softest he'd tasted in years, and Annie had a way of making people feel like they'd lived there their whole lives. By the 3rd night, he was eating supper with them under the stars. "You were in the war?" Clara asked gently, passing him another slice of cornbread. Jake nodded. "Rode with the 12th. Lost too many friends. Didn't see much reason to come back, until I did." She nodded slowly. "My husband didn't. Annie was just a baby." He looked at her with quiet sympathy. "Fever took my parents 2 years back," she added. "Then the bank took our land. I cook now, run the kitchen here, and hope for better days." Annie had fallen asleep on the bench, her head resting on Jake's arm. He didn't move. Didn't dare. "She talks about you," Clara said quietly, "ever since you gave her that carved horse." Jake smiled faintly. "My brother carved the real one for me when I was little. I just made a copy. Didn't expect her to hang on to it like that. She keeps it in her apron pocket. Says you remind her of the fathers in the old stories." Jake's throat tightened. "I don't need saving," Clara said, staring at the firelight. "But I won't lie, I'm tired. And she deserves more than I can give." "You give her more than most," he said softly. They sat in silence for a while, the prairie wind brushing past them. The next morning, Jake saddled his horse. He had to move on, had to finish what he started. Cleaning up old debts, reaching the ridge where his brother's ashes rested. Clara packed him bread and cheese, and a cloth napkin. Annie clutched his leg. "You're leaving?" Jake nodded slowly. "Just for a bit. Got some things I need to settle." She looked up at him, eyes watery. "Will you come back?" He hesitated. "I'll wait," she whispered. He didn't expect it to hurt that much, riding away from a little girl and her tired mother. But it did. Each mile weighed heavier than the last. He reached the ridge by nightfall, buried the last of his brother's letters, laid down his coat, sat by the edge of the cliff, and stared into the great, wide nothing. Then he closed his eyes and thought of Annie's voice, soft and stubborn. "Please marry my mama." He thought of Clara's tired hands, her warm smile, and he knew. Jake returned a week later. He looked like hell, dust-covered, eyes red, but smiling. Clara was on the porch, shelling peas. She looked up, startled. "Jake!" He got off the horse, reached into his pocket, pulled out a small, carved ring of wood. "I know I'm not much," he said, "but I'd be proud to try. If you'll have me." Clara stared at him, tears gathering. "You'd really marry a cook and her stubborn little girl?" "She's not stubborn," Jake said, smiling. "She just knew something before I did." Annie squealed from inside the house. "I told you, Mama," she cried, running out barefoot to hug them both. He came back. Jake picked her up and held her high. "I promised I'd try," he said, and he never broke a promise again.